The 2014 Ebola virus disease outbreak in West Africa would have remained but a regional epidemic if the pathogen had been contained in that area of the Dark Continent. If that were the case, however, we wouldn't have a story. Now, in this lecture, then, we will identify the first documented case of Ebola virus transmission outside of Africa. We will discover how EBOV made its way out of Africa and onto the European continent. We'll recount the tragic story of Excalibur, and we'll reveal the gate through which EBOV passed to begin its travels around the globe. So let's get started. Our story begins in Liberia in August 2014. The Brothers Hospitallers of St. John of God are a Roman Catholic order founded in 1572 in Spain. Known colloquially as the Order of Do-Good Brothers, the order carries out a wide range of health and social service activities in 46 countries, including the United States. Now, early that month, that is August 2014, Brother Miguel Pajares, who had been working as part of the order's Ebola relief effort in Liberia, contracted Ebola virus disease. A citizen of Spain, Pajares was subsequently evacuated there, where he soon died. Then, in September, a second member of the Order of St. John, Brother Manuel García-Viejo, who had been working in Sierra Leone, contracted EVD. García-Viejo was also flown home to Spain shortly thereafter, and he subsequently died on 25 September. García-Viejo and Miguel Pajares were both treated at the Hospital Carlos in Madrid. In October, student nurse María Teresa Romero-Ramos, who had cared for García-Viejo at the Hospital Carlos, started feeling ill. Romero-Ramos was tested for exposure to EBOV. Ramos subsequently tested positive, thus making her the first confirmed case of Ebola virus transmission outside of Africa. Now, by this time, October 7, Spanish health authorities were monitoring 50 contacts, with 7 of the 50 being sequestered in isolation at the Hospital Carlos in Madrid. That same day, authorities released an order for the apprehension and subsequent disposal of Romero-Ramos's dog Excalibur, as they thought the animal might be a reservoir for the EVD pathogen. Now, as word of the order spread across Madrid, animal rights activists, determined to save Excalibur's life, set up protests in front of Romero-Ramos's apartment. Though honorable intentioned, the protesters' efforts were ultimately ineffectual, as Spanish authorities on October 8 took possession of the animal and subsequently ended Excalibur's life. On October 9, 3 more patients were isolated, as authorities reported a worsening of Romero-Ramos's condition. In the meantime, though, Romero-Ramos was administered the experimental antiviral drug favipiravir, which we'll learn about later, and on October 12 had actually started to show some improvement. On October 17, authorities reported that all of Romero-Ramos's contacts were Ebola virus free, and by the 20th, Romero-Ramos herself was testing negative for the virus. Then on November 1st, Spanish health authorities were able to confirm that Romero-Ramos, the world's first case of Ebola virus transmission outside of Africa, was EBOV free. Finally, on November 2nd, World Health Organization officials declared Spain to be free of Ebola virus. The United Kingdom also received its first case of Ebola virus infection in August 2014 in the person of William Pooley. Pooley was a nurse serving as part of Britain's contribution to the EVD epidemic relief effort in Sierra Leone. After contracting the pathogen, Pooley was flown home on a specially equipped Royal Air Force C-17, and after receiving treatment at the Royal Free Hospital in London, Pooley was released in good health. That was September 3rd. In late December, Pauline Cafferty, a British aid worker, arrived home to Glasgow, Scotland. She had spent time as a volunteer aid worker at an Ebola treatment center in Carytown in Sierra Leone. She sought treatment at Glasgow General Hospital after feeling ill. Now, Cafferty was subsequently transferred to the high-level isolation unit at the Royal Free Hospital and received extensive treatment for EVD. Contact tracing was carried out on other passengers who traveled on the flight from London to Glasgow with her. In early January 2015, the Royal Free Hospital announced that Cafferty's condition had progressed to critical. This was perhaps the storm before the calm, as Kafferke's condition saw marked improvement by the 12th of January. Interestingly, along with experimental anti-Ebola drugs, Kafferke had received blood plasma transfusions from none other than William Pooley. And on the 24th of January 2015, Pauline Kafferke was deemed free of Ebola virus infection and was released from the hospital, determined to return to Sierra Leone to continue her work there. On 11 March 2015, Corporal Anna Cross, a British military nurse who had volunteered as part of Britain's EVD relief effort, was diagnosed with Ebola virus disease. She was flown back to London, where she was treated at the Royal Free Hospital. Cross was the first person to be treated with the new experimental Ebola drug, MIL-77. Anna Cross subsequently made a full recovery and was released from the hospital. Now, we've mentioned before that the long-term prognosis for those that have recovered from EVD may include systemic aches and pains, hair loss, peeling skin, and meningitis-like complications. Re-enter Stage Center Pauline Kafferke. Now, remember her from Scotland. Kafferke indeed began experiencing many of those symptoms and revisited the local hospital in Glasgow. On October 5, 2015, Kafferke was diagnosed with having a virus. Now, her physician could not specifically identify the pathogen. The next day, Kafferke was admitted to Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, where she was subsequently diagnosed with complications of Ebola virus infection. Kafferke was returned to the high-level isolation unit at the Royal Free Hospital in London. Medical specialists there concluded that Ebola virus was in Kafferke's cerebrospinal fluid, where it remained undetected by her immune system. And once again, health officials in Scotland initiated contact tracing with Kafferke's family and acquaintances. And once again, Kafferke's condition deteriorated before stabilizing 5 days later. On October 21st, Kafferke's attending physician, Dr. Michael Jacobs, confirmed at a press conference, quote, "This is the original Ebola virus that she had many months ago, which has been lying inside the brain, replicating at a very low level probably, and has now reemerged to cause this clinical illness of meningitis," end quote. On November 12, 2015, the Royal Free Hospital in London announced that Kafferke had made a full and complete recovery and was no longer infectious. Kafferke was transferred back to Queen Elizabeth's in Scotland. Now, significant criticism was leveled towards the airport traveler screening protocol as a result of the seeming ease at which Pauline Kafferke was allowed to leave England and return to home in Scotland. At the time, screening protocol consisted of a series of questions and an external reading of the traveler's temperature. Now, remember that, as with all viral infections, Ebola virus infection is eventually accompanied by an obvious fever. However, also remember that clinical signs of EBOV infection may not manifest for up to 21 days. So in Kafferke's case, she was obviously still infected when she left London at the end of January 2015. She was obviously asymptomatic as well. This one case forced Public Health England to reevaluate its Ebola virus traveler screening protocol at all of the country's entry points. Now remember that a pandemic affects many people in many countries and on many continents. So in the next lecture, we will continue to follow the wanderings of Ebola virus as it makes its way to mainland USA. See you shortly.